The other thing that I'd say is that I go, like, while you're going kind of forward with your stuff, I'm like, I find recently that I'm going backwards.
What does that mean?
I'm delving further into the past and finding things that I like with like older bands that I didn't listen to as much that maybe my friends did growing up.
Oh, I still do plenty of that.
Yeah, but like it's bleeding into my work too. In the last 3 years, I'd say you're gonna be like, what? You know,
dude. I've always thought, even before I feel like I have somewhat of an idea of what I'm talking about at this point, as long as I've been doing this. But even back in the day, I've always felt like the more kinds of styles of things that you put into your brain, the more possibility you have.
It's just a big
creatively.
Filter. Yeah.
It's just like, you know, getting that other plug-in, getting that other VST. You're giving yourself more options.
No, totally. Absolutely.
Different colors to paint with. I just watched the Bob Ross documentary last night.
The one recently I've been kind
Death
of...
to the Kowalskis.
Well, like in the last couple of years that I was kind of hung up on is, thanks to Ryan Regas, is like old Typo records. I hate the production on them, but like I can appreciate it. Yeah.
There's that part of Christian Woman that if you're not in a completely silent room, you can't even hear 3 minutes of the song.
Yeah. The first intro, I'm like, well, hold on, let me turn this up past the max.
Well, it's an 8-minute song. They do the intro comes back as a bridge, and it's just like you just can't hear anything. It's like chain, scary movie from the 50 monster dragging chain noises and reverb.
Yeah. All that stuff put on there. Monster tracking channels.
I tried a on the fly edit restarting my camera while you were talking, so we'll see how that comes out.
It's all good. I've got both of us. You're a little blurry, but I think it'll work as a side by side anyways.
Yeah, I'm probably blurry because you're getting my laptop cam, which is just like totally over saturated with light.
Yeah,
but I've got my.
But yeah, like I don't know. It's
much.
I move back and
ISO
forth, but
setting.
I find myself going further backwards these days in terms of finding inspiration.
Man, forward and backwards at all times is kind of where I'm at. I have always been a fan of Steely Dan and Donald Fagen from literally every standpoint of that art. Sonically, from an arrangement standpoint, from a writing standpoint, from an orchestration standpoint, individual musician execution, everything about Steely Dan and Donald Fagen is like it's just for me. That's something that I'm very into. And I've been listening to that's what I listen to for fun lately, is like Donald Fagen solo records. But I can't listen to the same thing over and over again for very long. Like
Same. Yeah.
I will bounce from Donald Fagen into Car Bomb, and from Car Bomb into 60s George Jones, and from 60s George Jones into Stuntable Pilots for the 8 billionth time. Sometimes I will just go back to Soundgarden and Stuntable Pilots and Nirvana, and I will just listen to the whole catalog for a few weeks and just be like, yeah, I was right about this back in the day, and I'm even more certain about it today. I love this music. Nirvana was the one that grew the most for me as I got older. Like, I liked it when I was younger, but I was like, my parents were fairly limiting as to what I could listen to.
Yeah.
And so when things got too like expressive, it would almost give me anxiety because I was afraid I was going to get in trouble by listening to it or something.
I kind of had something similar going on. Yeah.
And like, I understand what they're trying to do, and it's fine. But I think that may have had something to do with it. But they, for the most part, were like cool with Stuntable Pilots and bands like that did more singing and less thrashing,
less like in your face kind of
stuff.
Yeah,
Less pop culture fame for drugs, with the exception of Scott Weiland, who
I was about to say Scott Weiland.
well, most of his drug fame came like as I was approaching adulthood.
It was like post 2000s.
Yeah, it was around 2000. It was because he went to rehab after Purple, and then they did Tiny Music Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop, that third record with Lady Picture Show and Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart and Big Bang Baby, you know what record I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And where his voice kind of sounded like this, like that.
Yeah.
Instead of that bigger, like raspier, like almost Southern vibe that his voice had.
It was very, very much so. Yeah.
On Core and Purple, but that voice came back for the fourth and fifth records. Which is
interesting.
It was a little bit of a blend of the two because they had some songs like "Hello, It's Late" and "Wonderful" that were like super laid back, like vibey acoustic songs. He's singing really lightly, and there's a bunch of really cool harmonies. Anybody that's never listened to the fourth and fifth record by Stone Temple Pilots, they're called, I believe they're simply called Number 4 and Shangri-La Dee Da. Shangri-La Dee Da.
Which one's the one with the big star on it?
I believe that is Shangri-La Dee Da.
And that's the one that has No Way Out on it?
Oh, no, that's...
I remember Michael showed me that one time, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good.
No Way Out? Is that I think that's the fourth record.
I think so.
I'm looking. I'm getting on my phone. It's actually great timing. I'm going to look this up, and then we're going to move to the segment that I have planned.
Ooh.
Which is questions that are dumb and fun.
Let's go. I have to take a shot beforehand.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, number 4. It's the black and white star, black negative space.
Man. Yeah, like whenever we were
I will link that record in this podcast links as well.
Whenever we would like we'd go down to like South Texas to play a handful of gigs. This is like after the whole Bob studio and everything, and like we were up in Plano. Anytime we were all traveling together. What's up?
Back when you guys were Jam Station.
Yeah.
The computer that you built that I bought from you was your Jam Station.
Jam Station
for sure.
He would always request to put that record on sometime at like whenever we were coming home in the middle of the night, like
this is Mikey?
2:00. Yeah.
It's a great record.
It was awesome. I love that record. That's where I like found that record. I was like, wow, this is actually really good.
That I'm about to look at it right now. Yeah, that's the one that had Sour Girl. That was that was probably their biggest single after the third record, and like even after the fifth record and the sixth record. The sixth record, the record that came out in 2010, is also fantastic. There's a couple of songs where I'm like, I'm not gonna listen to this, but for the most part, it's great. There's a song called Kiss on Mars that is just a badass rock and roll song, man. It's just badass.
Go listen to that.
You totally should.
Yeah.
I Got You is one of the softer songs on that Black record. I Got You.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that. Yeah.
That's that Black record. And Atlanta. He lives in a bungalow in the sun.
I think I've heard that as well.
You definitely have. It's on that record.
Yeah.
Sour Girl and Church on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. Okay, never mind. Yes.
It's a great record. Glide. Okay. I think Glide is probably Glide and Sour Girl and Church on Tuesdays are my favorite songs off that record. You said something about a shot. Let's do a shot, and then let's take the questions segment and do it. Let's take it and do it. These are just dumb questions that I came up with sitting on my couch, talking with my amazing girlfriend and texting with one of my neighbors, and we decided to do. It was Aaron's idea, and with the help of my neighbor, they talked me into it. And so now we're doing a question segment, except I freaking forgot I had a redo podcast last week. Yeah. The podcast that was supposed to be number I don't know, one of them that was supposed to come out was going to be my buddy Carl, and somehow I lost all the video for it.
Oh, that sucks.
So last week we redid Carl's, and we decided during that podcast that if 10 people share the one that we just redid, that the 25th episode was going to be the audio release only, and I do have all the footage of the engineer who doesn't say a whole lot in the first one. I'm just going to have just the video of his face.
Of his face while y'all talk.
And him texting and like hitting his vape pen or whatever. But I forgot to redo that last week with Carl. So
here, cheers.
Cheers to you, man. I appreciate you doing this after all.
Absolutely.
Oh, goodness. Whew. Okay, so a lot of these are either or questions, okay? There's some like more involved answers towards the end.
Okay.
Some of them are stupid, some of them are like actual like poignant questions. The first question is, and I think I know the answer to this for you, but it's Metallica or Megadeth?
That's difficult. I like them both.
By the way, I'm not. These are not tailored to you. I've asked these to everyone that I've asked.
Okay. I'm totally gonna have to go with Metallica though. It's the James Hetfield right hand, dude. I don't know, like the down picking.
I mean, I get it. It's all very enjoyable.
But I love the curveballs that Dave and the boys throw in all their stuff as well, and how weird they can get, especially like on a record like Peace Sells.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I especially like the System Has Failed, which is Vinnie Colaiuta. Yeah,
that's an awesome record. And that was actually slated to be a solo album, and at the last second he was like, no, it's a Megadeth record. And like, I'm so glad, because it's a good addition. It
is, and it's the arguably one of the greatest recorded drummers of all time in Vinnie Colaiuta playing on a Megadeth record. And Vinnie Colaiuta, like, is, I would say largely some of his most famous drum tracks, like Sting stuff, like it's him playing on Ten Summoner's Tales, Lose My Faith, and that kind of stuff. But he's also on a Megadeth record.
What's your stick out song from that album?
From which one?
The System Has Failed.
Kick the Chair?
Yes. There's so much energy there, dude. It's ridiculous.
Cool. Yeah. It's really cool. It's really cool riff stuff, man. That's a very cool riff. Dave has always got really cool riffs, but he's somehow like, so many bands coming up with riffs, and metal is kind of like, it's got fairly narrow parameters. Certain bands write themselves into tighter parameters than others.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But he manages to never run out of ideas somehow.
Yeah. They always, and somehow they get, like, I don't want to say they get more abstract as time goes on, but there's always like one or two there that you're just like, where did that come from? With like every record.
And his voice has changed a lot over the years, and it's always been very interesting and very original to him.
I actually really like the older he gets, the more it sounds. I don't know what it is, but I'm enjoying it as he gets older.
I'm titling this episode "The Older He Gets, the More It Sounds."
Yeah. The older he gets, the more it sounds.
Okay, so my next question is about kings, and I'm going to ask you to pick one king out of three.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Albert, Freddy, or BB?
Oh.
The three kings of the blues.
Yeah. I'm probably most versed with BB there. Like, that's kind of stock because like that's just who I'm most versed with.
That's fine. I have a rehearsed answer to that question.
Oh yeah.
If in that position, I say Albert is the best guitar player, BB is the best singer, and Freddy has the coolest songs.
Yeah. Okay. No,
because Freddy's songs were unique to Freddy. The other guys were like playing the straight up like nose to the grindstone like blues for that ass, and Freddy had like Going Down, for instance. Like compare Going Down to How Blue Can You Get? There's no comparison. Those are different genres of music, damn near. But like he's got that song. You know what I'm talking about? The theme song for Eastbound and Down.
Yeah.
So he's got another song called Palace of the King. Do you happen to know that song?
No.
You should listen to that. I'm going to put a link to that too. Palace of the King. It's one of those old ass blues songs where the drum groove is snare drum on quarter notes.
I'll never get tired of that, by the way. I grew up with him doing that.
It's great. So Freddy's got great songs. So that's what I do.
Robert, explain your music. Well, hang on.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on. Can you hear me? Okay. This is a nerd question.
Perfect.
Solid or stranded core cables?
Solid or what was the other one?
Stranded.
Oh,
core.
stranded? Like braided?
Yeah.
Braided.
I agree.
Solid.
Solid always breaks.
Well,
it always breaks.
Okay, so Megami's braided, correct?
They have a couple of different ones, and I think Megami is a braided cable around a solid core.
So yeah,
which is what a lot of the higher end ones are.
There's my answer.
Because solid core is so brittle, sometimes people are lately. I think companies have moved away from the solid core and back to the stranded. The cable maker that I use two different guys, a guy from Texas and a company called BTPA from Tinley Park, Illinois, which is right by Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I believe they're both at stranded cables now, but they're the best cables that I've heard and used.
Yeah, okay, not to knock a company that starts with an M and might end with a stir.
Yeah.
But I had so many of those growing up.
Bang Energy.
Yeah, Bang Energy cables. I had so many of those growing up, and do you remember the advertisements for that stuff?
No, but that's all it was. It was just a marketing campaign.
Yeah, that's insane. Like you go back and look at that.
It's nothing else, man. Other than my guess is and I don't know this, and I don't know anything about this company, and whatever. But those kinds of scenarios to me seem like business guys who are into guitar on the weekends and then came up with a good business idea.
That's totally
that involved guitar.
Like somebody had a ton of money that they wanted to invest and see if they could recoup on something. They happened to like guitar and they wanted to do something with it.
I was about to say it had at the end of the day, it had nothing to do with bettering the scenario, and it had everything
to do about let me shove it in your face. Which I mean, to be fair, I got through a ton of gigs with them. Hey, whatever. But I also that's the cable I've swapped the most.
Well, I was just gonna say, you're getting Guitar Center entry level live wire cable for twice the price.
Yeah, pretty much
with plastic gold wrapped ends. This is the same composition, cheap alloy.
Yeah. I bought a bunch. I bought a ton of Megami cables a long time ago, and I've really liked them. I haven't had a single issue with them yet. But there's tons of companies that do it really well now.
Megami used to have the best ends, and now I think that a lot of people agree that at least as far as patch cable and pedal board cables, those, Switchcraft that's got those the square, really flat plugs. They're super.
Yeah, I've got some. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've got. That Brad, my
really
buddy,
convenient for boards.
No doubt, man. I mean, it can honestly, putting all your cables on those connectors, you can, in a lot of cases, come up with enough space for another pedal.
Well, not only that, but like it's been fine to record with too. I'm always paranoid about that. Is like you're only as good as your weakest link.
Totally.
Man, I threw so much stuff through just like those cables where it's like just this little tiny flat thing, and I was looking at it as like the sales guy's like, yeah, it's fine, you won't notice a difference. And I'm like, I might see you back in 10 minutes, and I used them and I was like, man, I really can't. This is kind of amazing.
Well, and the whole thing with that is, you're right about it being your weakest link, but even your weakest link, even if it's from a structural standpoint, a strong connection, let me save that. Let me ask you this next question, and then I'll talk more about that.
Okay.
Buffered or true bypass?
Depends on how many things are in your chain, but for the most part, I'd probably go true bypass for the most part. Buffered if there's like all these are together, yeah, something buffered.
I think it comes down to what you're doing.
What you're doing and what's your application.
If you're running 10 pedals, 35 feet to an amp on stage in an arena, you better have some buffers at the beginning. Yeah,
or even like you can probably swap out some of them with FETs,
At least a buffer at the end for that long cable run.
Yeah. But for the most part, like, I mean, I'm probably running 4 pedals at a time. There was one point where it was like 12 when I was doing this insane project, but I can just get away with true bypass on that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What I was going to say also was like different buffers have different colors and different sounds that they lend to the signal as well. Just like different cables sound different, and it really just comes down to, I think, what you are looking for in a sound, but that's only convenient in a recording scenario where you can say, I am going to right now assemble these components to achieve this sound, and then after that I'm going to reassemble and I'm going to achieve this other sound. Whereas in a live scenario, you need to be able to do all of those things
and be flexible,
all very quickly and accurate. So it just comes down to the scenario, I think. So it's, these are kind of like trick questions, or
also I would imagine
rhetorical.
That like most of the guests that you have on here are like big, like they all have their own, like their big tube amps and everything, like they're big gearheads basically, like matchless.
I've had everything in between.
Yeah, and like for
Drummers.
me, what I'm doing though, for the most part though, is like, man, it's like, it sounds like sacrilegious if I were to go back 10 years to myself and tell me this, but a lot of it's direct in. I'll record an amp every now and then, but I need the pedals more for the color than anything else, and that's why like I'm kind of like.
Do you have a bunch of tube amps that you love still?
No, I don't. Oh man, that sounds bad to say.
I mean, whatever. I
want an Engel Fireball. I would really like to have an Engel.
It's a lot different these days tracking because of the sounds that you can achieve. Now, for me, and I'm definitely a broken record on this podcast saying this, but it never feels quite right, and it makes it a little harder for me to play, but it does sound very good. It does sound it can if you use the right, put the right patches and hardware together.
Well, not only that, but you're still, even to this day, like unless you've got something really top end, you're still dealing with latency, which any guitar player is going to hate, Like even if it's 10 milliseconds.
I don't have a top end. interface, I've got a Focusrite Claret X, Apri X.
Yeah.
And
you do fine on it?
I have zero latency.
Perfect. I didn't know they'd gotten that good.
Well, a lot of that has to do with logic too.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because it has a low latency mode, and there is no discernible delay.
Probably pulls you down to like something like 256 or 128 samples so they can render it properly for you.
Also, there's a Focusrite control program that's live monitoring.
Oh, so you can monitor the analog input as well.
Yeah, it doesn't. It seems to all be tied to the DAW, but it's. I don't have any. I would not be able to play with any latency, and I have no discernible latency. And I've got a 2014 MacBook and a interface that is out of production.
I didn't realize it had gotten that good. That's awesome.
I mean, it's honestly, it sounds great to me, especially for most guitar tracks that I do here is through the aux. So I've got emulated cabinets and mics, and I've got built into that is you got 4 UA limited parameter plugins, a reverb, 1176 EQ, and delay.
They throw an 1176 in that thing. That's cool.
It's not the 1176 plugin that
I know and love.
No. It is a significantly limited parameter version.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Even based on that price tag. So this is a non-music question, but ties right into the sponsor of this podcast, Bobby Jam's Kitchen. Cook your food and eat it. The question
Delicious.
for you, Andrew, is tacos or pizza?
Tacos.
It's a pretty easy answer for me too.
Yeah, I like pizza, but I don't want to feel like I ate an entire, I don't know, loaf of bread by the time I'm done eating one.
I found that pizza sluggishness, when you eat better pizza, it doesn't feel that way.
Okay, so this is going to sound, maybe we're talking about the same thing.
If somebody delivers it to your doorstep, you're going to feel bad.
Yeah, it'll be terrible. If you make it yourself or if you find the right places that make it, I found that broccoli crust is awesome. I don't know if you've ever tried it. I don't
I've
feel
had
that
cauliflower, but broccoli sounds
cauliflower
way better.
too. Broccoli and cauliflower crusts are amazing.
That sounds great. But I'm very much a foodie and a cook, and I cook almost every meal we eat when we're in town.
Nice.
And I keep a sourdough culture, and when I make pizza, I make sourdough crust and I ferment it overnight. And
wow,
I make them in a cast iron pan that's on a burner on the stove. I put the crust in, and then I top it with whatever, and then I put it under the broiler. So it's cooking the bottom while I'm dressing the pizza, and then that pan retains that heat, and even as it goes under the broiler, it takes that heat and disperses it evenly, so it's constantly cooking on the bottom.
Yeah.
So I get an incredible approximation of wood fire pizza out of this cast iron pan in the oven.
That's awesome.
And I'm telling you, you don't feel anything like eating. You can eat 3 of my pizzas and feel better than eating 3 slices of Papa John's.
Yeah, no, totally. Absolutely.
Okay.
I believe it.
So
you have to cook me some next time I see you.
Well, I would love to, man. You need to come to the house, bring the old lady, and stay a couple days in the McCarty Massey suite that we have here upstairs, which is a guest bed and bath and breakfast.
I'm down.
So my next question for you, I think I know the answer to in your instance, but that's live or session?
Live.
Really?
I like session. Don't get me wrong. I love putting together records, but there is something, especially in the last like 4 years, that's like I needed another human out there to interact with. I mean, like, you remember how
out?
Huh?
Have you been playing out?
Not at all.
Well, why not?
Just everybody became adults. Like, whenever we were in the band, like, everybody became adults at the same time. You know what I mean? And like, nobody has time for the stuff. And I think even towards the end, I was like covering a handful of people's rent for the stuff, and I was like, So getting people in the same room at the same time is like a struggle these days for
I understand.
Effectively what would be like if I was to go, hey, do you want to be in a band? I have these ideas. Because I have these ideas, I still feel like, you're just coming here with my ideas, and you feel like you're not going to have as much input. So like, it's harder to get people in the same room together. Like, I have a record I want to put together, and I do want to play it live. I'd love to, but getting the right people involved is difficult. That's why. Well,
here's the way I think you have to look at that. Mm-hmm. You have to look at it as, this is your music. So if putting it together, recording it, and promoting it is something that you're interested in, you have to invest in that. Yeah. And you have to say, I'm going to pay you, and you're going to show up, and you're going to know this shit, and we're going to do it like I'm sending it to you, or you're going to take the input that I'm giving to you respectfully, of course. Obviously, if you're going to be a dick, that's one thing. But you find the guys that can do the thing, and you schedule the shows, and if they can do it, you do it, and if you can't, you can't. And that's the way I look at that from my perspective. Like, obviously, I'm a professional sideman and session musician, so I'm most of the time helping other people achieve their vision, either from on a stage or in a studio. Yeah. But when it's my thing and whether it's songwritery or jazz or fusion or whatever, it's my art music, and I want to help me express this vision. And to me, if I'm going to do that, it's worth it to me to find those players and then make individual arrangements with each person. It's almost always a friend who I can do a favor for at a later point or whatever, or I can, pay them infinitely less than what they're worth. Or in instances of recording, I've got several friends that I can be like, hey, I got this tune, can I fly you this? And you lay something down and be like, sure. And a week or two later, they'll send me their track back, and it'll be amazing, and I don't have to pay them anything, and now I've just got this dope ass track. And I have a bunch of tracks that I'm mostly finished, that I'm about to hopefully mix and master with the help of a friend of an engineer that is an engineer, and release. I don't think there's a chance it could be released by the time I release this podcast, but okay. So maybe and that's all good info, by the way. Like, I really appreciate the insight on that, because that's definitely a territory that I'll be kind of delving into at some point. It's worth it, because you can execute your vision, and you can demand things of these people, because you've reached an agreement at a financial standpoint or a professional standpoint. And whether that's scratch my back, I'll scratch yours professionally. I don't know, you do something for me and I'll do something for you. Yeah. Or it's like, I'm paying you $50 for this rehearsal and $150 for this show. It's in town, you don't have to go anywhere, whatever. It's worth it to me. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I think it's like, the more I think about that question, the more it's like 50-50. I really miss the live set. Like, I really miss the energy. I loved doing that when I did it, because it was just all heart behind it. And the older I got, the more it became heart plus technique rather than just art. But
the just doing it here side of it is amazing too, because releasing something to literally millions of people and seeing the comments in real time with it on it is a head trip that I didn't know was as incredible as it is. And then going to these events like QuakeCon and stuff like that and shaking people's hands is amazing. I've made so many friends for life at those places, and like that to me is like QuakeCon's kind of home base. Every year, if I want to know how I'm doing, like in terms of like, hey, is everybody still enjoying my art kind of stuff, I'll just go to QuakeCon and hang out for a few days and shake some hands with people. And if everybody still is like, hey, you know, like in, you know, just kind of we're all hanging out, I'm like, cool, I guess I'm still relevant.
That's really interesting, man. Yeah. You know, I know so little about that world.
You should come with me whenever they do it in public again. You'll have a blast, I promise you.
I'm down to do anything, man.
Anything?
It's just anything, bro. I just, you know, I know quite a bit about the working typical, what I would call typical working musician vocation.
Yeah. You
have carved out a cool niche for yourself, and I think that's really dope. I'm proud of you, and I'm envious to a certain extent. So let's move on to another question. I've kept you for long enough. Let's get through these. I'll let you get out of here.
Okay. I can hang out with you for hours, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty cool. The way this, I'm going to read this question as typed out. Single cool or humbucker?
Humbucker.
Interesting choice.
But single cool.
That's what I typed.
Humbucker layered with single coil.
I find it hard to choose one or the other because it really just depends on what it is I'm doing.
I mean, like for the most of the metal stuff, believe it or not, it's quad tracked. What's up?
I was gonna say a blend.
Yeah, it's quad tracked with humbuckers, and then I'll hex track. Like I'll do two more with single coils on left and right, and possibly even one more in the middle, just to give it a little bit more clarity and bite on like the percussive, like down picking stuff. Okay,
so when you're hex tracking, are you how are you panning that in the visual or in the aural image?
100%, 100%, 80%, 80%, one in the middle, and then I'll take two others, and I will do something where I actually mess with the stereo image on them, where I'll push it like 200% quote left and right, and I'll put those just lightly up there to where it sounds like oof.
Is it like out of phase sound or like I don't even know what that means.
It doesn't sound out of phase at all. It sounds like you remember like that stupid SRS wow effect on Windows Media Player?
No.
It would do this thing where it made the music sound like it was actually panning outside the headphones, like even wider. It's an
like
interesting
faux
technique.
surround.
Yeah, it's like a fake surround, correct. Okay. And I'll take two tracks and do that with them sometimes, not all the time. If I want to keep the music really tight, like if it's something that's fast and needs to be really tight.
Are they all the same part that you're doing this with, or are they different parts?
Different parts. Like if there's big chords, that. But if it's percussive stuff, I'll leave it. I'll leave it just like quad track.
I just, you know, in the stereo image for me and the things that I've been doing, it seems like you would, panning it like that, you would have, if it's all the same thing, wouldn't you run into like a more narrow image?
You would think so. There are different types of plugins a lot. Well, not really, because like first off, you're performing the same thing 4 times, and if it's the same person performing that 4 times, obviously you're not Freddie Mercury. You're not gonna throw your voice out of phase. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
But you can get it close enough to where it sounds like just two big guitars, right? Like on left and right. And if you've got it panned that way, you can hear something big left, something big right. And then when you start introducing something that sounds like it's even wider outside of it, but you just lightly blend it in, it gives a perception that the guitars are bigger than they are. It's really interesting. I'll have to show it to you sometime.
Yeah, I'd like to examine that. And speaking of big guitars, I actually meant to bring this up earlier and more often in general, but did you ever get into the Break the Cycle Stained record?
Break the Cycle. Yeah, I remember that.
That was the one that broke them.
Yeah, that was the big breakthrough record in 99, 2000, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know when it came out, but it was the one that had.
There was a ton of. There was like 3 or 4 singles on that record.
Okay. Yeah, there was.
Yeah,
but that record has the biggest guitar sounds of that era, and it's like they're out of place big. They dwarf everything.
Yeah, they're huge on that record. It's like, you want kick drum? Not so much. It's gonna fight with the guitar a little bit.
It's not gonna fight with it. It's gonna lose that fight. The fight is over and the guitar's won.
Yeah.
But they're huge guitar sounds. I've always thought that was just a huge guitar sound record. So I guess I need to ask a pre-question to this question. Do you use a volume pedal?
A volume pedal?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes. I use a volume pedal for swell stuff on ambient things.
Do you use it before or after the gain stage?
After.
Really? Okay. People are very polarized about that.
Well, it just depends on the type of music. When you're talking about heavy stuff like metal, you don't want to compromise any of the oversaturated sound that you have that's going into those effects. You just want to control the volume of it that's hitting the effect and then rolling back off of it, which is how you get those electric violin is what I call them kind of sounds with it.
Sure. And there's a lot of dudes in the country and the pop realm where I live a lot of the time that are very adamant about running their volume pedal after the gain section. Never worked for me.
Really? I would imagine that that would be a natural for you since you're kind of a natural lead player.
Well, I use my volume knob on my guitar and my volume pedal before gain, and then I stack pedals to get where I need to get. And I have on my board right now, I've only got 3 different drive pedals. Ideally, I think I'd have more than that if I had to, and a catch-all board. But the reality is I have a couple boards, and so anyway, I have a light, a medium light, and a medium, and I stack all those in various ways to get different colors and
textures
and levels of saturation
and maybe even volume.
Totally. Well, I all of my guitars, with the exception of my dad's 63 Strat that I do play a lot. Something weird just happened in my eyelash. Sorry. Every other guitar I have has a treble bleed, so I don't lose any of the clarity as I roll the volume back. It works like an active volume pedal. So again, I'm just almost controlling the gain.
Yeah.
There are a couple pedals that react a little differently to that.
That's pretty much what you're doing. Yeah. But for what you do, for the most part, that works. Because gain is looked at as more of a texture rather than a staple that is there in the music. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It needs to be consistent for a super heavy style of music. You need to consistently have that sound there. But for something that's blues, jazz, country, anything like that, it needs to be a little bit more dynamic. So it makes more sense.
No, you're right about that.
Yeah. One quick thing.
Yeah, no, please. No, please.
This thing The BB preamp?
Yeah.
So good for lower tuned guitars.
That's exotic, right?
Yeah. So awesome. I fell in love with it because like the treble section on it just brings something out on like 7s and 8s where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Have you ever played a Greer Lightspeed?
I have.
Do you have one of those?
I don't. But those are awesome.
That's the best open sounding light to medium overdrive pedal that's ever been created.
They're pretty solid. It's just it wasn't one that I was like that struck me immediately, you know what I mean? For what I was doing.
No, you're wrong about that.
Okay.
Do you use compression often prior to tracking?
Pre-tracking?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes.
Like on your board?
Not all the time. A lot of the times it's just straight ed. But if it's bass, yeah.
Oh, so you do track with compression. You don't do it in post?
I'll do it both with bass. I'll just smash a bass most of the time. Sometimes I'll let it breathe like in a track, but a lot of times I forget what that's called, where you band limit bass guitars and distort certain frequencies. There's a they call it a certain thing on how you do it, but you like compress the low end a ton and then you let the top end breathe.
It's like a multi-band compression.
Yeah, it is, but there's like it's actually like there's a name for it. It's a system that somebody came up with, and there's an actual name, and they actually develop plugins for it now too.
Okay, that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
This is a bass guitar question: jazz or precision?
Jazz.
Fair enough.
I love jazz basses. Precision basses are cool. I don't know. Jazz basses have a little bit more clarity, I feel like.
They're definitely a more open sound. This is the jazz bass has a growlier top that sits in the mix really well, whereas the P's got that punchy mid thing. And I've got the best of both because I have a 5-string jazz bass. So like I've got like a lot of clarity on my lower 5th string, and then I've got a vintage P bass with steel, like 3-year-old steels on it, and it's gnarly, man. It can do anything.
I need a fretless.
I would like a fretless. I certainly don't need one. What do you have a favorite pedal?
Favorite pedal?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It is this one. Is that
a Moogerfooger?
It sure is. It's the MF101. It's the low pass filter.
Okay, MF101 Moogerfooger.
Yeah. These things are awesome, specifically because you can put a external pedal into it and basically use it as a wah pedal if you really wanted to and get weird with it.
Oh.
But also the cutoff on it I used on a game called Dusk for so much, dude. I ran synths through it. I ran guitars that had already been processed back out through it. I ran entire mixes through this thing, like left side and then right side, and mess with the filter. And it's just like it's amazing.
That's pretty badass.
Not only that, but like there's a drive circuit on it that if you hit it a certain way, it's disgusting, but like in just a little bit, just a little tiny bit, and it's awesome.
Just a depth thing in a blend.
Yeah, and you can go between 2-pole or 4-pole filter. So you can either get a really aggressive sweep or you can get like a really subtle sweep on your wah.
That's you're looking badass.
For. Yeah, these are awesome. They're out of production now, unfortunately. They stopped making them.
You know, I've never been very good at amps or pedals that have too many options.
Same.
I like to have a collection of things that have pretty straightforward purposes.
Same.
So, like, I've never had a timeline, but I've had a capstan for ever.
Yeah.
And I think that's my favorite pedal of all time is the capstan.
It's pretty good, man. They sound amazing.
It just sounds about as close as you can sound in pedal form. Plus the feedback thing when you hold down the tap, as well as the secondary functions. You can add spring verb to the feedback, and like just all those little touches can come in so handy to dialing in like unique sounds in a recording situation, you know?
Totally.
For my next question, I would like to know, do you have a favorite venue for performing?
I did. It's gone now.
Oh, that must be the Curtain Club.
How'd you guess?
I loved the Curtain Club, and I also loved Club Clearview. Did you ever play at Club Clearview?
Yeah, I played Clearview, I think one of the final months it was open. I think you guys played, and we played like a month or two before it closed.
Right on.
Yeah, or the band that you were in at the time.
Yeah, I loved that. I loved that place.
Yeah, it was cool.
Also, I loved the Curtain Club the most. Curtain Club was the best sounding room down there.
Did they ever reopen that? I think they reopened Blind Lemon, but I know they had foundation issues. That was the big thing.
No, I mean, it was reopened up until they sold the building and closed the business.
Man, bummer.
Yeah, that was a real estate developing scenario. Yet it still sits there untouched.
Yeah, that's the thing is I'm like, this...
It might have been COVID related. I don't know. Who knows? But this is a multi-answer question.
Okay.
And I would like to know if you had to pick 3 desert island records, what would those 3 records be?
Man, this is going to sound generic. 3
If you say The Doors, I'm going to disqualify.
No. You know, we're all in the cosmic movie, Robert. That means once you die, you see your life flashing before your eyes infinitely. Drunk Jim Morrison. That's Drunk Jim Morrison on a live record.
Oh.
God.
That guy.
I agree. Man.
His success rate would disagree with us both.
Yeah, true that.
He also died, so he can't defend himself. So, you, Jim Morrison. Welcome back to Gear and Beer.
3 desert island records.
It's a tough question, man. I don't know. I think somebody asked it back to me, but I don't. I think that anytime someone asked me this question, I would give a different answer.
Yeah, no, totally. You're absolutely right. I think right now, let me pull up my playlist. I can probably tell you faster that way.
What are you listening to? Is it a cover band, some downtown bar with a na-na-na and air guitars, or is it something to get you through? It's a sad song playing on a radio station. Tears still fall and hearts still break because you're hanging on. Or is it a love song about someone new? Andrew, what are you listening to?
God, that's still so hard. Okay, I'm just gonna pick
just
a few.
Get top of your head, man. Yeah, 3 records that you love. Let's just change the question. 3 records that you love.
The first A Perfect Circle record, I really, really, really can just go back to.
3 Libras? No, what's it called? Mer de Noms?
Mer de Noms, yeah. That's a great one.
That's a good record.
Yeah, and like
that one and 13th Steps.
And like it's different from like, man, I don't want to offend anybody. It's different from Tool because I feel like they get to their apexes a little quicker and it's easier to digest. Like
I would call it a a folkier tool.
Yeah. Like I really like, as I've gotten older, I do really like the build-ups in some of those Tool records.
Do you know who played drums on that stuff?
Who?
That'd be Josh Freese. Do you know what Josh Freese is currently doing?
What's he doing?
Playing drums with Sting.
Really?
Yeah. And he has been for years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's also really cool.
It is real cool.
Yeah.
I love that. That's, you know, if I was better at this career, I would be doing that. I would be playing with the widest variety of acts, you know, as I can. That's what I love. I play guitar and bass at a black gospel church in town sometimes, or, you know, monthly, depending on COVID precautions, etc.
Yeah.
I play guitar and bass and party bands downtown. I play guitar and bass and sometimes other stuff on the road with country artists. I play jazz in town, like traditional jazz. I write what would have to probably be labeled like funk or fusion jazz music.
Dude, that's so dynamic. That's awesome.
All of those things. I've always told people that have asked me for career advice, I think if I have to tell somebody one thing, it's about how I approach it. It is, whoever is on the other end of that phone calling me to come do a gig, I want to be able to tell them yes. Whether it's Pat Metheny looking for a bass player, or if it's Jonathan Davis that needs a lead guitar player, or if it's the Oak Ridge Boys need somebody to play acoustic guitar, or if the Winans need a bass player, or whatever. You know, I love all of it. I want to do it all. Dream gigs for me would be anything from Kenny Loggins to Chaka Khan to Jamiroquai to the Winans to Herbie Hancock. Like I love it all. I love it all.
Okay, I think I've got the rest of the answer as you were going through all that as well.
Do it.
Which holy cow, that's like super diverse. That's awesome. I didn't know anything about that, like with what you were doing. That's awesome.
That's what I'm into, man.
The other one would be, I'm just trying to remember because we've had a handful of drinks here.
Speak for yourself, bro.
The Fragile from Nine Inch Nails.
I'm not familiar with that. They've had a lot of releases and remix releases and stuff. When is that record from?
So that was like right around, like, I think 99, 2000. That was right after the Downward Spiral. That was the record after it. So
okay.
It's the one that had the single "We're in This Together." I don't know if you remember that one. That was pretty big.
I don't remember it by title. I'm sure I've heard it.
It's a double disc album that, like,
all I can think of is The Hand That Feeds.
No, that was like the record that he did after he came out of rehab. I like that one too. It's really raw.
That's a great record.
Yeah, but like this one, the production on it, it's like it's the very infancy of Pro Tools, and he actually had an entire Pro Tools system built into his house and learned how to code in it. Not code in it, but learn how to work into it with like a big DAW workstation. It's like the very beginning of all this, right?
Sure.
And he also was using something which would later become, as I understand it, I could be wrong, correct me in the comments if I am, Reactor by Native Instruments, where you can design your own synthesizers. He was actually using that for that and created a ton of textures with it and made a fucking double disc album doing all this, and it's amazing. Like, intro to
I'll put a link.
It's so good. If you want to just sit down and put a record on that'll just take you a handful of places, that's it. Like, that record's great. And the last one, I'd have to say, I'm gonna throw out a weird curveball. If you could, can I put a hypothetical in here?
Sure, you can answer our question with a question.
If you could mix the best parts of, and not really even the hits, but the ones from Load and Reload, I would do that.
Okay. I'm with you.
You're like, no.
I like both of those records.
I like the longer songs on that, like Fixer and like and Outlaw Torn and Bleeding Me and stuff like that.
I like Outlaw Torn and Bleeding Me. It's been a minute since I've revisited Reload. I thought Unforgiven 2, while contrived, was actually still pretty good.
Yeah. Like, and actually, if you go, like, if you can, man, that feels.
Ronnie?
Yeah. That's a cool one, too. Like, introducing a Telecaster. I always enjoyed that era of them because it was so, people like didn't like it, but I was like, that's so against like what they've already established. They're trying new things. As an artist, I can totally respect that, because the older I get, the more I don't want to do the stuff that I've already done. I want to try the other thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Man, there's a record. Hang on, let me see if I can figure it out real quick. Oh, crap.
I have had far too much whiskey.
You probably haven't had enough.
Yeah, that's right.
So, are you familiar with Sonic Temple by The Cult?
Yes and no.
That's the one with Firewoman on it?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
The one that sounds like Danzig to me.
Yes.
So I was talking to earlier. I was talking to my buddy Mark Letary about Megadeth and Metallica, and he was saying that the Load Reload stuff sounds like that Sonic Temple record by The Cult, and I was like, I don't know it, and he's like, listen to it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and yeah,
okay,
it sounds,
yeah, a little bit, yeah, I can. Yeah.
They're not like ripping anything, but no. Influence for sure. Somebody was listening to that heavy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a complete accident. It's entirely possible that somebody one of them by osmosis took production in that way.
Or it was just Lars listening to a record and he was like, man, I really like this. James, can we just do this?
And then I was like, Napster's the worst. So I thought the only thing.
Why did he turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Because they're both fucking foreigners. I love both of them.
Yeah, they're great.
I don't care what anyone says about Lars, and I don't care if he actually played on those records or not, because some people stipulate that somebody came in after he was gone with the engineer and
That's
listened
bullshit.
Listened to what he played and retracked it, and I don't know that I believe it either.
Yeah.
But I also he's never shit the bed in a live performance that I've ever seen, so I'm inclined to not believe it.
He has with a couple I've seen, but it's only like super deep cuts.
There's such inconsistencies in time as far as the way those things were laid down. So for somebody to come in after the fact and fall in line with that seems almost ridiculous, especially considering the technology of the era.
Oh, yeah. And not only that, like, those guys are control freaks. There's no way.
Well, no, from what I understand, it was like James...
saying someone else come in.
Yeah, James, an engineer, and like Shannon Forrest or somebody.
Dude, I'd put my bank account on it. No way.
I just can't imagine that.
Yeah.
Okay, so my final question for you.
Okay. Here, cheers before the final question.
Well, and that doesn't mean we have to be done, but it's just my final question.
All right.
My final question is, what is the professional accomplishment of which you are most proud?
Ooh.
Talk yourself up. This is the part. Have you ever seen Hot Ones?
Yeah.
We're going to roll out the red carpet. Tell us what's going on in your life. What are you most proud of? This camera and only this camera.
Most recently it would be doing the.
That's not the question I asked you. What professional accomplishment are you most proud of?
Probably being able to score for a mainline Doom game, like an official Doom game. and that was last year and this year.
That's pretty freaking dope.
Yeah, like it's like it's one of the few titles like left in games that has like a consistent track record of there hasn't been a bad one. Especially
Doom 1
critically.
and Doom 2 are the only ones that I've ever played.
Do what?
Doom 1 and Doom 2 are the only I've ever played.
Oh man, there's a handful of others that I think you'd have a blast with. If you come over, I'll show you. But yeah, like getting to do that and also working on Quake, like just id branded stuff, official id games is like, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this.
It doesn't get any bigger than that.
You could argue that it does with like intellectual property like Fortnite and Call of Duty, but to me personally, like as an artist standpoint, not really. I mean, yeah, maybe from intellectual standpoint, but I think what I mean is, with the exception of those two, which are arguably the two most mega
notable
monsters,
games of all time.
Yeah.
You would call that the tier 1A,
yeah,
and you're on tier 1B games, which is where pretty much all games live of a high caliber.
Well, every game that's
games that have notoriety to guys like me who don't play them.
Yeah,
you know
yeah. Like it's. I mean, Doom is where everything started. Doom and Quake is where everything started. So
you did a Duke Nukem too, didn't you?
No. That ended in a lawsuit.
Duke Nukem did?
Yeah, that one did.
Wow.
Yeah, that was that's another podcast for another day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we can go through it. I don't mind.
We can cross all the T's and dot all the lowercase J's.
Yeah, I'll just need to get my attorney here. Andrew doesn't want to ask that question.
Is there something wrong with that weird eye? Brought it all back to Wayne's World too. See what I did?
Very good, very good. At the very beginning, that's where it was, and now it's here again.
And you bring it back with the money.
Man, sometimes I still wish that we were just playing on a stage in California. I miss that. That was fun. I liked playing with you.
That was fun. I miss going to California. I haven't been to California since February of 2020, and I really like going to San Diego and playing.
Did you go there for gigs? Did you go there for NAMM?
I've only been those two times to Summer NAMM.
Okay.
I'm sorry, to Winter NAMM.
Winter NAMM, yeah.
One with you and then one the year before.
That was when you had the Dean endorsement, right?
Yes, it was.
Yep.
And I'm apparently still on the
You
website.
are? That's awesome.
Last time we talked about it was like 2 years ago, and you found the link and sent it.
Yeah, that's right. I did. I was like, hey, you're still there.
I'm sure that's just an indictment on their IT person. Whoever's supposedly maintaining that website. Yeah.
Website still looks good. I'll collect that check now. Yeah.
Looks good. Everything's working great. Just great. Never mind. Who's that? No, don't worry about it. There's some guy in an overalls doing a jump kick.
I forgot it's that photo.
Man, so the Dean thing was connected slightly to the Vinny and Dime thing for me, and it always brings me back to the one time that me and Boss, and this I'm about to regurgitate name drop for about 20 seconds.
Boss was the bass player for a band called Hillbilly Orchestra that Robert was in, for anybody.
That, for the listeners, this is the bass player and like a lifelong friend of mine.
And like the way we met, me and Robert, was Robert and Boss and a singer called Mongo and a drummer called Scott all asked us to open up for him, I think, one night. I think is what it was.
Well, I met you with Bob in the studio.
Yeah.
Before I forget what I was about to say, let me dump this whiskey in here to help forget. So through, Dean they gave us 5 custom shop USA custom shop guitars. A horrid
Razorback.
Yeah, with stars and bars, which I stand firmly against that. I never played that guitar.
I remember you being like, I don't know about this one.
And I didn't, and I never played it. The other guy played it, but I had an identical custom shop ML with the tape on the pickups, just like Dime Slime.
That one was cool.
It was cool, and it sounded amazing, and it played amazing. And then I had that Cadillac, which is like a Les Paul with the one Flying V or the one Explorer horn.
Yeah.
It's the lower horn is like a point, but it was basically kind of like a, all their guitars were geared towards higher gain stuff, so it was like a higher gain geared Les Paul.
The Cadillac was awesome.
It was pretty awesome, and that's the picture. Picture on the website is me holding that guitar and doing a jump kick. But Diamond Vinny helped hook all that connection up. And anyway, so long story short, I am at Dimebag's funeral of all things, and Boss and I are standing outside of the funeral home after going down and viewing the casket, which was full of bottles of Crown
Royal,
his signature pedals and stuff, his Cowboys from Hell wah, and a whammy pedal. And the coolest thing was Eddie's yellow and black.
Yeah, you got to see that
guitar he put that in there.
Yeah.
And then so after the service, we're standing outside, and a few minutes after Rob Zombie and his wife Sherry Zombie walked by, Eddie Van Halen busted out these 2 doors like a cartoon character in a movie, and he's wearing a jumpsuit. I'm sorry, not a jumpsuit, like coveralls, like mechanic coveralls. Oh, and he's clean shaven with long, stringy gray hair. And he busts out the door, and me and Boss are literally standing there, still not saying anything to each other, just standing there. And he busts out the door, and he's like, "Oh, hey, what's up, dude?" And then he just kept on walking. We startled him by being still outside. And then he told us, "Oh, hey, what's up, dude?" And then he left.
Eddie Van Halen said, "Hey, what's up, dude," to you.
That is the entire point of my story. Is one time Eddie Van Halen said, "Hey, what's up, dude?" How many people that Eddie Van Halen said?
This whole story where it's just like, I'm at Dimebag's funeral.
Yeah,
There's all these
told
things.
you it was about to be name drop regurgitation douchery, but it's. I remember it more vividly than I remember a lot of things in my entire life.
That's super cool, though. Nobody else gets to say that you know.
I met Wayne Static that day.
You met Wayne Static?
Yeah.
Did he have the hair done?
Oh, dude, they looked like they just came off stage.
Yeah, always did.
All of Static X was there.
Who's a bass player?
I only knew Wayne. I didn't meet any of those guys. I just saw them, and I didn't meet Rob Zombie or Sherry. I just saw them. They're tiny, by the way.
I know. His bass player is like a big session guy. Like whenever Trujillo went to Metallica, his bass player started filling a lot of those spots in like the rock and metal community, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
He did. Like he's been in a ton of bands.
Right?
Yeah, right. He worked on some music for Doom Eternal. What he was he was part of this huge choir of people that were just like,
was that the one that you did?
In like certain consonants, and they were saying things like in like the Doom universe, and I got to work with his voiceovers for part of the soundtrack. That was fucking cool.
That is cool. Is Doom Eternal the one? So that's the one that you did?
Well, Doom Eternal's the one that the composer before me did. His name's Mick Gordon. He's incredibly talented. He's amazing. The DLC stuff for that game is the stuff that I worked on. So it's after content, basically expansions and everything. It's like they're both 3 levels each, and like they're about 6 to 8 hours a piece.
Oh wow, that's pretty badass, man.
It's a good amount of content, that's for sure.
That's just such a cool, like, the word niche sounds like diminishing, and I don't mean it, but it's
it is niche. Like it's a tight knit industry. You're not wrong in saying that.
It's cool, you know.
Yeah.
It's a thing that you don't just presumably stumble your way into. If you're like, I want to do this, how do I go about doing this? And then you do it.
It's kind of how it went. Like, I mean, like it was like I started working with a mod team on a certain game, and then we got picked up to work on a full-on title. It was like, do you guys think you can do this? And the publisher and the studio were like, yeah. And then they said, can Andrew do a demo for us so that we can hear if he works? And I did, and I worked my ass off on it. And the first demo that I sent in, you want to know what they said? What the crits were? Swear to God. The crits were, sounds like audio diarrhea. So I tweaked it a bit and I sent it back, and they were like, that's
band
much
name called it.
Yeah. And they were like, that's much better. Thank you. Sounds like audio diarrhea.
Honestly, this sounds like audio diarrhea. Can you wipe and try again?
Dude, that has stuck with me forever since. And the guy who quoted that is like the owner of Apogee, and we hang out like we hang out quite a few times a year, and like anytime I see him, I'm just like, hey, how do those mixes sound now? They still sound like audio diarrhea. You fucker.
That's pretty funny, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I think it's that time, man. This has been quite enjoyable. I hope that all of the editing process ends up working out for me to release this.
Oh, yeah.
This is definitely the first time we've tried this, or we did no dry run or test run. We just rolled the dice, and my guest has been the pride of Rowlett, Texas, Mr. Andrew Hulshult of Barry of Barry and the Friends.
Barry and the Friends. That's all
right. Cheers to you, man. I
Cheers
appreciate it. I'll be in town this weekend. If I got a spare second, I'll shoot you a text. Maybe we can grab a hot dog.
Hot dog? That's very specific.
We can grab a hot dog at Quick Trip or something. Because you trashed me.
Yes. Awesome.
Okay. Well, thanks again, man. I love you, and I'm proud of you, and keep being badass.
Love you too, man. Absolutely. And like you keep doing what you're doing, and it's awesome. I love the diversity. It's so cool to see you out doing that.
I'm gonna drench you in my diversity. Okay, buddy. Be well. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Gear and Beer Podcast. Make sure and subscribe and turn on notifications for our channels, and if you haven't already, follow our Instagram and YouTube channels. We truly appreciate your support and ask that you please tell anyone you know whom you think might be interested in our podcast about gear and beer to help us grow and continue bringing in great guests from around the industry and beyond. Thanks again, and until the next episode.